Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing my reading and review of The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And you can support the show through either the Patreon page, where you can get extra content for as little as $1 a month, and or the merchandise store, where you can get various designs on T-shirts, long sleeve shirts, a sling bag, and an apron, if you would like. Support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. Also, please check out the links to friends of the show. That would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, and who has her own channel and also is the co-host of this show on weekends, on Saturdays, and Michael Strange of Trouble Minds Radio and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows from others and myself 24/7. And so again, with these review shows of this book I'm reviewing here, reading and reviewing, please keep in mind that the material I'm reading will have thoughts and ideas that you and or I myself may not agree with. So, but those are the views of Charles Fort. Also, there may be some things in there that he talks about that were anomalous at the time to him and to others around him, but that may have been discovered and investigated and researched later on that are now have been basically figured out and are not so mysterious anymore. So just keep that in mind as I'm reading here. This is a book from about 100 years ago. So also, I will make mistakes in reading in the pronunciation of words and names, and both in English and in other languages. So I apologize for that. This is not an audiobook, so there will be mistakes. But thank you all for being here anyway, despite that, and listening in. So we can get back to this book here. Fort was talking about this one case where a researcher went to a location where an object had fallen, and they basically tried to debunk it and or just write it off. And so that's where we pick up here as we get back into the series. So let me get positioned here to do all the reading and go from there. Thank you all again for being here, those of you that are able, and I appreciate that. So, getting back to the book, here we go. It says, let me see here. I'll read the last paragraph I read last time, just so we know where we're at. Talking about this researcher here, he says that, in his opinion, lightning had flashed down the chimney and had fused some of the brick of it. He does think it remarkable that the lightning did not then scatter the contents of the grate, which were disturbed only as if a heavy body had fallen. If we admit that climbing up the chimney to find out is too rigorous a requirement for a man who may have been large, dignified, and subject to expansions, the only unreasonableness we find in what he says, as judged by our more modern outlook, is, I suppose that no one would suggest that bricks are manufactured in the atmosphere. Sounds a little unreasonable to us because it is so of the positivistic spirit of former times, when it was not so obvious that the highest incredibility and laughability must merge away with the proper, as the Scientific American Supplement would say. The preposterous is always interpretable in terms of the proper, with which it must be continuous, or clay-like masses, such as have fallen from the sky, tremendous heat generated by their velocity. They bake bricks. We begin to suspect that Mr. Simons exhausts himself at Notting Hill. It's a warning to efficiency fanatics. Then the instance of 3 lumps of earthy matter found upon a well-frequented path after a thunderstorm at Reading, July 3rd, 1883. There are so many records of the fall of earthy matter from the sky that it would seem almost uncanny to find resistance here, were we not so accustomed to the uncompromising stance of orthodoxy, which in our metaphysics represent good as attempts, but evil in their insufficiency. If I thought it necessary, I list 150 instances of earthy matter said to have fallen from the sky. So again, just pausing here the reading for a second. These are books that Fort wrote, and he included probably hundreds of examples. But then there are hundreds of other examples he did not include of anomalous events. So I really find that to be fascinating. Again, shout out to Michael Strange. He did a show recently, and I joined him about how weird is too weird, and about how Fort could accept some things but not other things, even though everything he talks about is just so weird. So anyway, but the idea that he will include things in these books, but he doesn't include everything he's ever found. Getting back to the book here, it is his antagonism to atmospheric disturbances associated with the fall of things from the sky that blinds and hypnotizes a Mr. Simons here. This especial Mr. Simons rejects the reading substance because it was not of true meteoritic material. It's uncanny, or it's not uncanny at all, but universal. If you don't take something for a standard of opinion, you can't have any opinion at all. But if you do take a standard in some of its applications, it must be preposterous. The carbonaceous meteorites, which are unquestioned, though avoided, as we have seen, by orthodoxy, are more glaringly of untrue meteoritic material than was this substance at Reading. Mr. Simons says that these 3 lumps were upon the ground in the first place. I love how he puts that in quotation marks, and that's why I say it in a certain way, because that's one of his major points here in this book, that whenever anything does fall or seem to fall from the sky, so many people, scientists and other people, say, well, it had to have been there, it had to have been on the ground in the first place. So that's why he does that, and that's why I say it in that way. Whether these data are worth preserving or not, I think that the appeal that this special Mr. Simons makes is worthy of a place in the museum we're writing. He argues against belief in all external origins for our credit as Englishmen, in quotation marks there. He is a patriot, but I think that these foreigners had a small chance in the first place for hopefully for hospitality from him. Then comes a small lump of iron, 2 inches in diameter, said to have fallen during a thunderstorm at Brixton, August 17th, 1887. Mr. Simmons says, and quotation marks here, "At present, I cannot trace it," close quotation marks. He was at his best at Notting Hill. There's been a marked falling off in his later manner. In the London Times, February 1st, 1888, it is said that a roundish object of iron had been found, in quotation marks, after a violent thunderstorm, in quotation marks, in a garden at Brixton, August 17th, 1887. It was analyzed by a chemist who could not identify it as true meteoritic material. Whether a product of workmanship like human workmanship or not, this object is described as an oblate spheroid, about 2 inches across its major diameter. The chemist's name and address are given: Mr. James Morgan, Ebbowvale, not sure. Garden, familiar ground. I suppose that, in Mr. Simmons' opinion, this symmetric object had been upon the ground in the first place, though he neglects to say this. But we do note that he described this object as a lump, which does not suggest the spheroidal or symmetric. It is our notion that the word lump was, because of its meaning of amorphousness, used purposely to have the next datum stand alone, remote, without similars. If Mr. Simmons had said that there had been a report of another round object that had fallen from the sky, his readers would be attracted by an agreement. He distracts his readers by describing in terms of the unprecedented iron cannonball. It was found in a manure heap in Sussex after a thunderstorm. However, Mr. Simmons argues pretty reasonably, it seems to me, that given a cannonball and a manure heap in the first place, lightning might be attracted by it, and if seen to strike there, the untutored mind, or mentally below the average, would leap or jump or proceed with less celerity to the conclusion that the iron object had fallen. Except that if every farmer isn't upon very familiar ground, or if every farmer doesn't know his own manure heap as well as Mr. Simmons knew his writing desk, then comes the instance, and then he leaves it off there, trailing off. Then comes the instance of a man, his wife, and his 3 daughters at Casterton, Westmoreland, who were looking out at their lawn during a thunderstorm when they considered, as Mr. Simmons expressed it, that they saw a stone fall from the sky, kill a sheep, and bury itself in the ground. They dug. They found a stone ball. Simmons. Coincidence. It had been there in the first place. This object was exhibited at a meeting of the Royal Meteorological Society by Mr. C. Carus Wilson. It is described in the journal's list of exhibits as a sandstone ball. It is described as sandstone by Mr. Simmons, quotation marks there on the sandstone. Now, a round piece of sandstone may be almost anywhere in the ground in the first place, but by our more or less discreditable habit of prying and snooping, we find that this object was rather more complex and of material less commonplace. In snooping through knowledge, October 9th, 1885, we read that this thunderstone was in the possession of Mr. C. Carus Wilson, who tells the story of the witness and his family, the sheep killed, the burial of something in the earth, the digging, and the finding. Mr. C. Carus Wilson describes the object as a ball of hard ferruginous, ferruginous, quartzite, about the size of a coconut, weight about 12 pounds. Whether we're feeling around for significance or not, there is a suggestion not only of symmetry, but of structure in this object. It had an external shell, separated from a loose nucleus. Mr. Carus Wilson attributes this cleavage to unequal cooling of the mass. My own notion is that there is very little deliberate misrepresentation in the writings of scientific men, that they are quite as guileless in intent as are other hypnotic subjects. Such a victim of induced belief reads of a stone ball said to have fallen from the sky. Mechanically, in his mind, arise impressions of globular lumps or nodules of sandstone, which are common almost everywhere. He assimilates the reported fall with his impressions of objects in the ground in the first place. To an intermediatist, the phenomena of intellection are only phenomena of universal process localized in human minds. The process called explanation is only a local aspect of universal assimilation. It looks like materialism, but the intermediatist holds that interpretation of the immaterial, as it is called, in terms of the material, as it is called, is no more rational than interpretation of the material in terms of the immaterial. That there is in quasi-existence neither the material nor the immaterial, but approximations one way or the other. But so hypnotic quasi-reasons that globular lumps of sandstone are common. Whether he jumps or leaps, or whether only the frowsy and baseborn are so athletic, his is the impression by assimilation that this special object is a ball of sandstone. Or human mentality. Its inhabitants are conveniences. It may be that Mr. Simmons' paper was written before this object was exhibited to the members of the society, and with the charity with which, for the sake of diversity, we intersperse our malices, we are willing to accept that he investigated something that he had never seen. But whoever listed this object was uncareful. It is listed as sandstone. We're making excuses for them. Really, as it were, we're not quite so damned as we were. One does not apologize for the gods, and at the same time feel quite utterly prostrate before them. If this were a real existence, and all of us real persons, with real standards to judge by, I'm afraid we'd have to be a little severe with some of these Mr. Simmonses. As it is, of course, seriousness seems out of place. We note an amusing little touch in the indefinite allusion to a man who, with his unnamed family, had considered that he had seen a stone fall. Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier when I read that part. The man was Reverend W. Carus Wilson, who was well known in his day. The next instance was reported by W. B. Tripp. I'm not sure what the initials are for. That during a thunderstorm, a farmer had seen the ground in front of him plowed up by something that was luminous. He dug. Bronze axe. My own notion is that an expedition to the North Pole could not be so urgent as that representative scientists should have gone to that farmer and there spent a summer studying this one reported occurrence. As it is, unnamed farmer somewhere, no date. The thing must stay damned. Paragraph here, it's a long one, but maybe I'll get to it. Another specimen for our museum is a comment in Nature upon these objects. But you know what? I think I'm going to stop there because we have less than 2 minutes. So you have more of these objects falling and appearing to fall. And I like how Fort points out that people, even back then, were using terms like, they basically using terms like, well, they thought they saw something, which we hear that today so often. And even in cases where there's multiple witnesses to something, and they're describing what they saw, whatever it was, people will still say, well, they thought they saw this, which could be, but also writing things off just because of thinking that someone else just does not know what they're describing or how to describe things, to me, has always been a problem. And this goes back apparently quite a ways. So yeah, we're still in the falling of objects. Now we're starting getting into falling spheres of metals or stones, which is really wild. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes from here. And I hope everyone is enjoying this series. I am, but that's just me. And again, I do acknowledge that there could be some things that these books talk about that have since been explained away, and possibly with good reasons and good explanations. But still, the amount of things that are recorded in these books by Fort, not even counting what he didn't record, are really, really fascinating to me. So, hope you all enjoy this series. It's going to go on for quite a while, but please let me know what you all think, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.